Marcus found a bright yellow violation notice stuck to the basketball hoop outside his first "Welcome back" to summer break. The laminated slip flapped slightly in the humid Georgia breeze, catching the late morning light as Marcus squinted up at it. HOA violation unauthorized sports equipment visible from street view. He peeled it off slowly, more puzzled than angry. The hoop had been in the same place for years. Worn faded, slightly crooked, just like always, but something about today felt different. Inside, the smell of pancakes lingered in the air. Camille moved easily around the kitchen, still in her scrubs from the overnight shift. Her hair was pulled into a tired bun and her eyes crinkled at the corners. Not with age, but with the quiet fatigue of someone who hadn't stopped in a while. Marcus dropped the notice on the table next to her coffee mug. "They tagged the hoop," he said flatly. She read it, didn't flinch. "Some neighborhoods don't see kids like you the way I do," she murmured, flipping a pancake. "Eat syrups warm." He slid into the chair, watching her with a wary curiosity. Camille always knew when something was off. She didn't always say it out loud, but the lines around her mouth said plenty. "They going to make us take it down?" he asked, stabbing at the pancakes with his fork. "Probably," she replied. "But they'll have to send another notice. This one's going in the drawer." She folded the paper with practiced care and slid it next to a stack of nearly identical slips Marcus chewed in silence. He didn't ask how many were in the stack now. Across the street, the HOA's president, Connie Whitlow, approached at her usual glide heels, perfectly timed with the rhythm of her swinging clipboard. Her white hair was immaculate, her smile tight and controlled like the clasp on an expensive purse. Camille noticed her through the window. "Brace," she said under her breath, wiping her hands on a dish towel. By the time Connie reached the porch, Camille was already holding the screen door open with a polite, if chilly, smile. "Good morning, Camille," Connie chirped. "Isn't it just a gorgeous start to summer? Though I see Marcus is already making himself visible." Camille stepped onto the porch, holding the door open only enough for herself. "We've lived here 10 years, Connie. Marcus has been playing ball in that driveway since he could walk." "Of course," Connie replied, tilting her head like a curious cat. "But the rules haven't walked with him. HOA standards are what keep Maplewood beautiful, especially this close to the golf course." Her smile hardened. "We wouldn't want property values to drift." Camille folded her arms, her face unreadable. "Anything else?" "No, dear," Connie said sweetly. "Just a neighborly check-in." She turned to leave, pausing at the edge of the porch. "Oh, and you might remind Marcus that guests need to be cleared through the main gate. There's been some concern." Her eyes lingered half a second too long as she walked away. Mr. Hank shuffled by on the sidewalk, trimming his roses with a pair of ancient shears. He gave Camille a nod, more in solidarity than greeting morning. He said, not stopping his work, "That hoop's been here longer than Connie's color rinse." Camille chuckled softly. "Think she's coming for your roses next?" "She tries," he grinned. "HOA threatened to fine me last year, said the red was too loud. I told him it was the same color as my blood in '68. Didn't get another notice." From across the street, Riley Alvarez stood near her mailbox, phone in hand. Earbuds in, but not playing anything. She glanced up, made brief eye contact with Marcus, then looked away. Later that afternoon, Camille stopped at June's Diner on the way back from errands. The waitress knew her usual coffee light cream no sugar and left the check with a tired smile. Camille added a $2 tip on a $5 bill and left without a word. Maplewood's silence could be louder than most places' noise. As dusk settled, Marcus sat on the porch steps, twirling a basketball between his hands. The yellow slip was gone, but its ghost clung to the air. From behind the screen door, Camille watched her son without saying anything. That night, while Marcus brushed his teeth, he heard Camille's voice through the vent over the bathroom sink. "No, he's still out of state. I'll handle it, but it's starting again." On the next block, a white teenager left a lacrosse net on his lawn all weekend. Not a single citation. Marcus rode past it on his bike that Monday morning, the net sagging in the heat, a ball still wedged halfway through the mesh. No laminated warnings. No clipboard bearing. Connie. Just sunshine and silence. The air was already thick, heavy with that southern blend of cut grass and humidity. By the time he coasted into his driveway, the HOA landscaping crew was in full swing. Riding mowers, buzzing weed trimmers, slicing with military precision. Their yellow shirts moved in rhythm, stripping the neighborhood of anything out of place. Except, of course, for Connor's net that had apparently earned invisibility. Camille was already on the porch, sipping iced coffee. Her scrubs exchanged for jeans and a pale linen blouse. She was reading the HOA newsletter, a glossy trifold printed on thick cream paper, when the buzz of the trimmer paused and a man in a green vest walked up the drive. Without a word, he handed her a folded sheet and returned to his crew. She didn't open it immediately. Instead, she handed it to Marcus with a quiet sigh. Trash violation. Curbside visibility. It read in bold. They were out there for 5 minutes, Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. I rolled them back before the truck even turned the corner. Camille nodded once. Doesn't matter. But I know. She refolded the notice and placed it inside the kitchen drawer next to the others. Go get cleaned up. It's hot out. He turned to go, then paused. Do you ever get tired of it? Camille looked at him with that quiet strength that felt like stone under velvet. Tired doesn't change it. Calm might. The neighborhood BBQ was announced later that week. Flyers tucked into every mailbox, HOA logo at the top, an American flag watermark behind the bold red letters Community Unity Celebration. Saturday, 3 p.m. The Green. Their flyer was wrinkled, printed at a tilt. No personal note, just the formality of distribution. Camille tacked it to the fridge but made no mention of going. She baked banana bread instead and offered a slice to Mrs. Lucy next door, who smiled with thanks, but didn't invite her in. That afternoon, Marcus watched Ms. Lucy carry a covered tray of peach cobbler across the street to Connie's house. Selective sharing. Camille said under her breath, watching through the kitchen window. Saturday arrived with the smell of grilled hot dogs and citronella. Lawn chairs bloomed across the green. Kids ran with red, white, blue popsicles, melting down their wrists. And Marcus stayed home until he didn't. He walked the sidewalk slowly, headphones around his neck, curiosity outweighing comfort. Riley stood beneath the old magnolia tree across the street, phone loosely in hand, earbuds dangling. She didn't wave, just nodded as he passed. Thought you weren't coming, she said softly when he stopped near her. I'm not, Marcus replied. Just walking. Riley raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. From the speaker stage, Connie's voice floated above the crowd, cheerful and practiced. It's such a joy to see our Maplewood families gathering together. It reminds us of what good neighborhoods are built on: order, tradition, responsibility. Marcus rolled his eyes, started to turn away, but Connie's voice sharpened like a knife drawn along a whetstone. Some homes, she said, eyes scanning casually across the lawn, have no fathers. Maybe that's why their lawns don't behave either. The words hung in the air, dipped in sugar, soaked in venom. Marcus froze. Riley gasped beside him, then lifted her phone without hesitation. He didn't move, didn't flinch, just turned his gaze slowly toward Connie. Their eyes locked across the folding tables and buntings. She held his stare for 3 long seconds, then turned with a smile to accept a plate of ribs from Miss Lucy. That night, Marcus lay on his bed staring at the ceiling fan. His phone buzzed once Riley had sent a meme, a badly edited photo of Connie in sunglasses with the caption, Lawn and Order. He chuckled once, then typed back, Do you still have that video? Marcus found a silver coin under his mother's jewelry tray. A military challenge coin with no inscription, just wings. It was smooth and weighty in his hand, colder than it should have been in the muggy June air. He turned it over twice. No date, no name, just a pair of wings stretched wide across the brushed metal surface. The design felt old, not outdated, more like it had earned the right to say nothing more. Camille's dresser was always neat down to the exact tilt of her lotion bottle and the alignment of her comb. The coin must have been tucked beneath the tray for a reason. He placed it back exactly where he found it, but the feeling stayed in his fingers. Downstairs, the hum of the dishwasher filled the silence. The house was always quietest around noon, when the summer sun made movement optional and thoughts a little heavier. Camille stood at the sink, wiping the same mug twice. Her face was composed, but her shoulders carried something they didn't speak about. Mom, Marcus asked softly from the hallway. Was Dad in the Air Force? Camille paused, then resumed her motion. He flew, she said simply. Not all flight suits come with patches. He waited, hoping for more, but she turned to the fridge. The message was clear, some skies were still classified. Later that afternoon, the sun dragged shadows across the driveway. Marcus sat outside bouncing a basketball absent-mindedly, each echo a soft metronome to the thoughts in his head. He was 8 when he first saw the old Cessna. They'd driven an hour out to a dusty private airstrip. The sky had been impossibly wide, the kind of blue that made you squint and dream at the same time. Vincent stood beside the plane, sleeves rolled up, calm as always. Marcus had stared at the propeller, fascinated and mildly terrified. Vincent had knelt beside him, voice low. Don't worry about the noise. Listen to the wind instead. It'll always tell you what's coming. They'd taken off on a short hop just over the fields and back. Marcus hadn't touched the controls, but his dad had let him read the instruments. Watch the trim tab, feel the way the plane leaned into turns. You fly like you walk, Vincent had said then. Balance, breath. Quiet. He hadn't flown with him since. The sharp ping of Camille's phone pulled Marcus out of the memory. She glanced at the screen, sighed, and opened the laptop on the kitchen table. Subject, property, compliance, escalation. Of course, she muttered. She didn't call Marcus over, but he saw the header clearly from across the room. Too many words, too much formality. Another complaint. That night his phone buzzed a known number. The screen didn't show a name, but he knew. Hey, Marcus, answered quietly. Hey, son. Vincent's voice was lower than he remembered, like gravel in morning coffee. I found your coin. A pause. You weren't supposed to yet, Vincent said gently. But I'm glad you did. They talked about the yard, the heat, the HOA. Vincent chuckled once when Marcus mentioned the basketball hoop. Then came the words that made everything else still. I'm watching. You're doing fine. It should have made Marcus feel seen. It did, and also didn't. When will you come home? He asked, heart racing. There was silence on the line. Not the awkward kind. The deliberate kind. When it's time, Vincent said at last. You'll know. Marcus sat on the back steps for a long time after the call. The streetlights blinked on, one by one, across Maplewood Lakes. He heard Riley's bike before he saw her. She stopped at the curb, 1 foot down, phone already in her hand. I've been filming, she said. Little things. HOA stuff. Stuff Connie does. I didn't know what for, but now I think I do. She handed him her phone. Clips played snippets of Connie measuring grass with a ruler, whispering to the lawn crew, writing on her clipboard while watching a Hispanic family unload groceries. You're not the only one Connie's gone after. Riley's voice was shaky. But you might be the only one who won't break. The weight of the coin returned in Marcus's hand. Only this time it was imaginary. He looked up at the dusky sky, faint stars blinking through the summer haze. Maybe it's time Dad came home. Riley stared at the post, button thumb hovering. Screw it, she whispered, and tapped. The screen blinked, then confirmed video uploaded. For a second nothing happened, no fireworks, no inbox explosion, just the faint hum of her desktop fan and the crinkle of the Fritos bag by her elbow. The video had no edits, no flashy captions, just raw phone footage from the neighborhood. BBQ, Connie's voice, sweet and condescending, filled the audio. Some homes have no fathers. Maybe that's why their lawns don't behave either. Then a pause, a moment of silence. Marcus, standing like a statue, eyes steady, that was what stuck with her. Not Connie's line, but how Marcus never flinched. Riley had added only one caption: "What HOA leadership looks like." Her phone buzzed a minute later. "Did you post it?" her dad's voice asked from the kitchen doorway. Mr. Alvarez was still in his office, clothes loose and tie, tired eyes behind rimless glasses. She nodded, not looking up. He walked in, took one look at the screen, and sighed. Truth brings pushback. Be ready. Riley shrugged fingers, still hovering over the refresh button. She earned it. "I'm not saying she didn't," he said, placing a cup of tea on her nightstand. "Just make sure you're ready for what comes with it." She nodded, her two eyes locked on the climbing view count. By lunchtime the next day, Marcus had seen the video not from Riley, but from the school group chat. It had been reposted to 2 neighborhood Facebook groups, screen captured into a meme with a lawnmower added, and someone had even auto-tuned Connie's voice into a song. He didn't laugh, didn't speak, just walked into the kitchen and handed Camille his phone. Camille watched the video in silence, then read the comments. A mix of support sarcasm, and one from a user named MapleMom22 who wrote, "If they don't like the rules, they should leave." Camille placed the phone on the counter, her mouth set in a firm line. "She put it online?" she asked quietly. Marcus nodded. "She's brave." "So was you, Mom." At that, Bobby Q, Camille didn't answer. Instead, she turned toward the window, watching the wind move through the crepe myrtles. An hour later, every Maplewood Lakes resident received an email from the HOA. Subject: maintaining harmony in online spaces. Body: recent social media content has been shared which misrepresents community leadership and harms our reputation. We urge all residents to be cautious about sharing misleading or edited materials. Thank you for preserving our unity. No names, no direct reference. But everyone knew that evening Camille stepped onto the porch to water the plants and found Mr. Hank already leaning on the railing, hands clasped over his cane. "Evening," he said. "Evening," she returned. He looked at her for a long beat, then said, "Keep your head. Things are moving." Camille raised an eyebrow. "Moving," where Mr. Hank smiled faintly. "Let's find out together." Back in Riley's room, the comment counter on her video jumped from 198 to 217 in seconds. She shoved another Frito in her mouth, chewing mechanically. A soft knock came at her door. Her dad leaned in. "There's a message from a local reporter," he said. "Says she's with Channel 9. Wants a quote." Riley's hands froze over the keyboard. "Should I—" Mr. Alvarez didn't answer right away. He sat on her bed instead, looking around at the wall of posters. Rosa Parks, James Baldwin, Greta Thunberg, then finally said, "Don't answer for them. Just answer for you." She nodded slowly, then typed, "Yes, I'll talk." An hour later, Camille stood at the mailbox, sorting through a stack of flyers and bills. One envelope stood out. HOA letterhead gold, embossed. She opened it without ceremony. Notice of board review. Family compliance status. She stared at the line in the middle of the page, bolded and underlined. Please prepare for formal appearance regarding cumulative violations and conduct unbecoming of community standards. She folded the letter slowly, eyes narrowing just slightly against the breeze. Camille placed the thick binder on the HOA meeting table. The sound echoed like a judge's gavel. The room fell silent. Even the soft gurgle of the iced tea dispenser in the corner seemed to pause. The Maplewood Lakes clubhouse, usually reserved for retirement luncheons and holiday wreath-making, had never hosted this kind of tension. Neighbors filled the rows of folding chairs, their polite smiles, tight eyes darting between Camille and the woman at the podium. Connie Whitlow stood tall behind the HOA seal, her blazer a crisp pastel that didn't quite match the cold set of her jaw. She cleared her throat, clasping her hands. "Welcome, neighbors," she began. "As your HOA president, I want to thank you for your continued commitment to civic order. Maintaining Maplewood standards is not just policy, it's pride." Camille didn't flinch. She waited. When Connie finished, she rose slowly. The binder still closed before her. "I'd like to speak." Connie smiled tight and rehearsed, "Community members are welcome to raise concerns at the end." "This is more than a concern," Camille said gently but with weight. "It's a pattern." She opened the binder. The metal ring squeaked as she turned the first page, then the next. Dozens of violation slips, printed photos, dated envelopes, all carefully organized. A few murmurs spread as people craned their necks. "These are notices my household has received over the past 5 years," Camille continued, "for things like a basketball hoop, a misplaced bin, a flower pot that was an inch too wide." She paused, flipping again, and these she gestured to the next section. "Are photographs taken the same days, same infractions on different homes. Homes that never received citations. Homes that happen to belong to families who don't look like mine." The room shifted. Someone coughed. The air grew heavier. "I'm not accusing without evidence," Camille said, her voice steady. "I'm presenting facts, which, as my husband once reminded me, are harder to argue with than opinions." She stepped back and Marcus rose from his chair beside her. He held a small note card in his hand, but he didn't read from it. Instead, he looked out across the room and spoke plainly. "I've lived here 10 years. I want to feel safe walking to school." Just that. It was enough. From the back row, Mr. Hank straightened in his seat. Near the middle, Mr. Albright, silver hair, pressed shirt, and a presence that used to carry weight in this room, lifted his hand. "I served on this board," he said clearly, "before Connie took over. Back then we reviewed things fairly. Citations needed at least 2 signatures. That rule vanished without a vote." A few heads turned. Someone muttered, "I remember that." Connie's lips thinned. "Let's stay focused. This isn't a court of law." Camille opened a final section of the binder. "These are email printouts," she said, "from HOA communications. This one," she tapped a page, "instructs inspectors to monitor houses at the edge of the golf lot. That may sound benign, but only Black or Latino families live on those lots." Gasps rose, quiet but unmistakable. Someone shifted in their chair, another leaned forward, squinting at the document. Connie's fingers gripped the podium. She adjusted her collar, then smiled, not sweetly this time, but like a cornered animal. "We may need to discuss terminating your community membership privileges," she said, voice icy. The room didn't gasp this time. It fell still, not from agreement, but confusion. Eyes flicked to one another, some neighbors frowned. Others folded their arms, and somewhere near the back, Miss Delaney clutched her purse tighter, unsure of what she'd just witnessed and whether it matched the image she'd believed in behind Connie. The American flag rustled gently in the air conditioning. The paper cups of tea sat untouched, and the sound that lingered longest wasn't the binder's thud, but the silence that followed her final threat. As Connie raised her glass to toast tradition, the rumble started, deep, growing impossible to ignore. She paused mid-sentence, her smile frozen. For a split second, it could have been a rolling thunder or a distant lawnmower, but the sound didn't fade. It deepened, rhythmic, deliberate, too heavy for anything, grounded. Paper flags fluttered on grill tables, napkins skittered off plates. Children stopped mid-game, their sparklers held aloft and forgotten. A few elders shifted in their lawn chairs. Mr. Hank's eyes narrowed as he slowly stood. Camille looked skyward before most others. Her face didn't change, not a smile, not a gasp, just a small nod like she'd been waiting. The sound crested as the helicopter appeared on the horizon, small at first, then growing in form and definition, its rotors slicing the humid July air. It wasn't military gray or police black, just a modest private chopper with no logos, no drama, but its presence rearranged the sky itself. Connie turned fully now, her glass trembling slightly. The folded notes in her hand slipped to the grass. The helicopter hovered over the green, its descent measured and gentle. Folding chairs scooted back. Picnic blankets clutched at their corners. But no one screamed. No one panicked. It was too calm for that. Too intentional. The skids touched down with a soft thump. The cicadas fell silent. The door opened. Vincent Taylor stepped out, dressed in khaki slacks and a slate blue shirt. His sunglasses caught the sun reflecting the crowd like twin mirrors. He didn't wave, didn't raise his arms. He just walked slowly, precisely across the lawn. Every step seemed to press into the moment, not for drama, but for permanence, as if each footfall erased doubt. He passed Connie without a glance. He passed Mr. Albright, who removed his cap in quiet acknowledgement. He passed Riley, who stood near the tree line, camera phone lowered to her side, forgotten, and then he reached Marcus. No hug, no salute, no speech. Vincent simply placed a hand on his son's shoulder. Steady, grounding, proud. Marcus looked up, his chest rising slowly. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. Everyone could see the answer written across his posture. He came. The silence was total. Mr. Hank Tears, behind his glasses, removed his cap. Someone near the grill coughed and then hushed again. Even the dogs, earlier yapping at every bouncing ball, had gone still. Connie tried to speak, her throat working behind a tight jaw. She reached for her clipboard but came up with only air. Vincent turned finally to face the gathering. He spoke softly, not for volume, but for clarity. "Mind if I join the celebration, and then—" He sat beside his son. By morning, the Connie for HOA signs were quietly gone, replaced by nothing but trimmed lawns and silence. No one spoke of them disappearing. No one saw who took them down. But by the time the sun crested the rooftops of Maplewood Lakes the day after the 4th, the pastel placards with neat block lettering had vanished like chalk after rain. Vincent stood on the porch with a cup of black coffee, wearing the same plain slacks from the day before. The neighborhood was quiet. In a different way now. Not heavy, but waiting. Cicadas still sang, sprinklers ticked in rhythm across the lawns, but something underneath had shifted. Camille joined him, her hand brushing his as she passed the coffee thermos to his side. Marcus was already at the curb, shooting hoops alone. Each bounce echoed louder than it needed to. Mr. Hank walked by on his morning loop cane, tapping gently against the sidewalk. He paused near the mailbox, tipped his hat. "Morning." Captain Vincent raised his mug in return. "Morning." They said nothing more, but something passed between them, a current of respect that didn't need naming. Camille found herself visited 3 times that morning. First, by Ms. Delaney, who brought a jar of peach preserves and left it with a note. "Didn't know. But I see better now." Then by a young couple from 2 streets over who admitted with downcast eyes we didn't realize how hard it was until we saw it. And finally by Miss Lucy. She carried a basket of still warm blueberry muffins covered with a neatly folded cloth. "I hope they're not too sweet," she said, not meeting Camille's eyes. "They'll be perfect," Camille replied. The older woman hesitated, then placed a card atop the basket, just 5 words written in careful cursive. "Sorry, it took me so long." Inside, Marcus found the muffins and held one up like it was evidence. Ms. Lucy Camille nodded. He grinned. Better late than never. At midday, Vincent sat with Mr. Hank on the latter's porch, sharing silence and sweet tea in mason jars. "She was right about one thing," Hank said, eventually nodding toward Connie's house. "The neighborhood's changing." Vincent gave a slight smile. "I came home for my family. Maybe for more than that." Down the street, Camille opened the mailbox and found a plain white envelope. No return address. Inside, a sheaf of printed spreadsheets itemized HOA spending over the last 18 months. Highlighted entries showed charges for decorative landscape edging, custom signage, home office. Consultation all billed to HOA discretionary funds. All signed off by 1C Whitlow. Later that afternoon, Mr. Albright stopped by with a clipboard tucked under his arm. "Wouldn't blame you if you ignored this," he said, handing it to Camille. "But I thought maybe you'd want to see it first." It was a draft petition for vote of no confidence. HOA Board President Camille didn't smile, just nodded once. About time. That evening, Riley's latest video buzzed on Camille's phone. She tapped the link. It was the same footage of the July 4th moment, Connie's raised glass, the distant rumble, the descent of the helicopter. But now the caption read, "When silence is louder than speeches," underneath, reposted by Voices of Valor. A national veterans group, the share count was rising fast. At June's Diner, the regulars gathered in a corner booth beneath faded photos of the town's founding families. Hank stirred his coffee slowly. Miss Lucy sat beside him, flipping through the petition draft. Mr. Albright read aloud the suggested language with a lawyer's cadence. No one interrupted. No one argued. When they reached the final page, Miss Lucy folded it carefully, then looked up. "Let's do it." They clinked coffee mugs quietly as if sealing a pact. The doorbell jingled. Connie Whitlow entered, purse clasped tight. Smile, just a half-beat behind her eyes. The room didn't hush, it didn't tense. But no one rose. No one waved. No one offered her a seat. For the first time since she took office, Connie looked small. 3 weeks later, Maplewood's newsletter began with something new. Leadership transitions. It was a plain heading, no exclamation points, no scripted slogans, just 2 words that said more than a page of spin ever could. Below, in small print, came a brief paragraph. Effective immediately, Connie Whitlow has stepped down as HOA president. We thank her for her years of service. Interim leadership will be selected at the upcoming board meeting. No apology, no mention of the petition. But between the lines, every reader knew at the clubhouse that evening the resignation letter was read aloud. Delivered in her absence, it was equal parts deflection and denial. Circumstances beyond my control. It began. My efforts to maintain community standards were often misunderstood. No one clapped, no one protested. The silence wasn't accusatory, it was complete. Afterward, the board turned to Camille. "We'd like to nominate you to serve on the new Oversight Committee," Mr. Albright said. "We believe the community trusts you." Camille smiled softly and shook her head. "I appreciate that, but I think there's someone better." She turned her gaze to the back of the room where Mr. Alvarez stood with a folder under his arm and pride in his daughter's eyes. Riley's father has both the legal experience and the heart for it. The nomination passed without debate. By Saturday morning, the community park pulsed with quiet energy. What had once been reserved for HOA-sanctioned events now opened freely. No wristbands, no permit stickers. Kids biked without looking over their shoulders. Dogs on leashes tugged toward frisbees, and under the basketball hoop at the public court, Marcus dipped a wide brush into teal paint. The mural was nearly finished, a massive tree rising from cracked concrete, its branches full of color. At the base, the roots were painted in cursive. Respect, justice, courage. Riley stood beside him, phone holstered for once, paint on her cheeks. Her article had been published in a local paper last week. Yesterday, she'd received an email offering a summer internship with a regional newsroom. "It's not the Washington Post," she said modestly. "It's a start," Marcus replied, adding the final swirl to a leaf. "And it's yours." Vincent arrived just after noon, wheeling a portable chalkboard across the lot. A small sign read Saturday Skills, Aviation Basics, and Self-Defense for Teens. 3 neighborhood boys followed him with curious eyes. He crouched low, showing them the basics of center balance. Then how a plane banks gently into the wind. No bravado. Just focus. Back at home, Camille stirred lemonade under the shade of a borrowed canopy. Smoke curled up from her grill and picnic tables overflowed with dishes, casseroles, ribs, peach cobbler, and a lasagna from Miss Lucy that came with a wink and a quiet. This time, everyone's welcome. By late afternoon, laughter filled the block. Lawn chairs circled up naturally, not by invitation. Riley played a bluesy playlist on a borrowed speaker, and Mr. Hank taught 2 younger kids how to spot an honest poker face. As twilight neared, Marcus stepped onto the small deck they'd borrowed as a stage. He looked out at the crowd, not massive, but real. diverse in every way, eating together, talking like neighbors. "We didn't want special rules," Marcus said, voice steady through the warm dusk. "We just wanted fairness, and now we build that together." The crowd clapped, not roaring, just steady and heartfelt. As the last light faded and porch lamps flickered on one by one, Vincent sat beside Marcus on the porch swing. Camille dozed in a chair nearby, the scent of citronella candles swirling around her. The cicadas began their nightly chorus. A dog barked somewhere down the block, and an American flag above the Taylor mailbox stirred in the breeze. Not dramatically, just enough. Vincent leaned closer. "I won't always be here," he said, voice low. Marcus nodded. But now Vincent added, looking out at the mural glowing under soft string lights, "You know how to fly." Under the soft hum of porch swings and the rustle of backyard flags, Maplewood Lakes slowly became something new. Not perfect, but more honest. What began as quiet violations and clipped smiles unfolded into a community willing to see, to listen, and to change. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive in thunder or protest, but in firm hands placing paint on concrete, and neighbors choosing courage over comfort. When power is used to exclude, it isolates, but when shared, it roots deep and lifts everyone. Maybe the strongest kind of neighborhood isn't the one behind a gate, but the one where people stand up for each other even when it's hardest.